An entire country declared a week after her. Not after she won the tournament. Not after she won a Grand Slam. After she showed up. Austria, a European nation with 38 years of tennis history at this venue, looked at what was happening around it and made it official. Alex Eala week. Asterisk signed. Documented. Real. And what happened in the 7 days before that declaration is one of the most extraordinary stories professional tennis has ever produced. Let's start with a number. 40,000. That's how many Filipino fans entered Austria during a single week in April to watch a 20-year-old play a WTA 500 event. Not a Grand Slam. Not a final. A regular season clay court tournament in a small Austrian city. 40,000 people crossed oceans, emptied savings accounts, booked connecting flights through Dubai and Singapore and Doha, and transformed an entire region's tourism economy in 7 days. Hotels within 40 kilometers of the venue, sold out. Every one of them. Numbers the region hadn't seen since its biggest music festivals. Restaurant revenue in the surrounding area, local business owners described it with one word, asterisk unbelievable. Asterisk the kind of unbelievable that makes you call your accountant twice just to confirm the figures are real. The Austrian Chamber of Commerce began compiling a formal report. Economic analysts were called in. A tourism official gave a national broadcast interview and used the word asterisk unprecedented 4 times in 6 minutes. The WTA, meanwhile, was scrambling. Ticket sales had exploded by more than 400% compared to the previous year. Sessions featuring Eala sold out within hours. Organizers were forced to move her matches to the largest available venue. It still wasn't big enough. To understand how we got here, you have to understand something about Filipino sports culture that no ranking table can capture. The Philippines is a nation of over 100 million people with an almost supernatural capacity for collective pride. When a Filipino succeeds on the world stage, it doesn't feel like one person winning. It feels like everyone winning. Every grandmother in Cebu. Every jeepney driver in Quezon City. Every college student in Davao. They feel it personally. Deeply, in a way that's genuinely difficult to explain to someone who hasn't experienced it. Alex Eala has been carrying that feeling since she was 14 years old, the age she left Manila and moved to Mallorca to train at the Rafa Nadal Academy. A girl from Manila. Chosen by Nadal's academy. She absorbed everything. The footwork. The mental discipline. The relentless physical conditioning. The philosophy that says you never surrender a point, that the serve is not the weapon, it's the opening move in a chess match you've already planned 3 shots ahead. And back home, they were watching. They were always watching. Weeks before the tournament, the coordination had already begun. Group chats with hundreds of members. Facebook events shared thousands of times. Threads where fans from different provinces, different countries, pooled information about flights, hotels, transportation routes from Vienna to the venue. Filipino communities across Europe mobilized first. Spain, Italy, Germany, the UK, the Netherlands. They formed the first wave. Then came the direct flights from Manila. Then the connecting flights. Then, one by one and then in great surging groups, they arrived in Austria. Flags. Handmade banners. Matching shirts bearing her face. And drums, actual drums, that fans had somehow transported into the venue. On the first day, the venue staff noticed the accreditation lines were different. The noise in the stands was different. Austrian spectators who had spent years politely applauding at appropriate moments pulled out their phones and started filming. By day 2, the hotels were full. By day 3, a regional newspaper ran a front-page story, loosely translated, asterisk the Filipinos are here. And our economy has never been happier. Asterisk. And then, on day 5, Austria made it official. A regional government official stood before press and tournament stakeholders and declared the week officially recognized as Alex Eala Week in the region. The reasoning was straightforward. The economic contribution of the Filipino fans had been so significant, so genuinely impactful, that it warranted formal acknowledgement. Filipino fans erupted. Social media flooded. News anchors in Manila announced it with barely concealed emotion. For many Filipinos, it felt like something larger than tennis. It felt like recognition. But the tennis world fractured immediately. European commentators raised questions with careful, measured skepticism. Was it appropriate to honor a player who hadn't won the tournament? Other players, local Austrian players, European players, had achieved significant results at this venue without equivalent recognition. Was this a sporting gesture or a political one? An economic calculation dressed up in the language of celebration? You don't name a week after a player because her fans spent money in your hotels, one European commentator wrote. You name a week after a player because they changed the sport. It was an articulate argument. It was also one that Filipino commentators dismantled almost immediately. The European tennis establishment has a long and well-documented history of celebrating European players in ways that go far beyond their on-court achievements. Local heroes receive honorary ceremonies, naming rights, and official recognition at venues across the continent based on cultural significance as much as pure athletic record. Why, they asked, was the standard being applied differently here? Nobody answered that question cleanly. Inside Austria, the reaction was more honest than either side of the international debate acknowledged. Some residents were genuinely moved. A local musician wrote a short composition inspired by the sound of Filipino drums echoing through the tournament grounds. It accumulated hundreds of thousands of views. But other Austrian voices expressed something quieter. Not hostility. More a sense of a community that had been briefly overwhelmed by an external energy it hadn't entirely prepared for, and wasn't sure how to process. One shopkeeper near the venue gave an interview to a local paper. It was wonderful for business, she said. But I want to be honest. It was also a lot. My town felt different that week. I'm still deciding how I feel about all of it. That honesty, unviral, quietly human, cut through the noise in a way that neither the jubilant Filipino posts nor the pointed European commentary quite managed. When asked about the declaration in her press conference, Eala paused. Thoughtfully. I'm really grateful. But I think the declaration belongs to the fans more than it belongs to me. They're the ones who came. They're the ones who made it happen. I just tried to play good tennis. A generous answer. An intentional one, because she already understood something the debate was missing. The questions being raised weren't really about her gratitude. They were about what it all meant. About who gets recognized, and why, and on whose terms. And those questions don't have clean answers. They never did. Here's what we know. Stripped of the controversy and the competing narratives. 40,000 people crossed oceans because a young woman from the Philippines had given them something to cross oceans for. They didn't ask Austria's permission. They didn't wait for the WTA to build the infrastructure. They showed up, with their savings, their flags, their drums, and their devotion, and they changed the economic reality of a European city in 7 days. That's not a PR strategy. That can't be manufactured. And Austria, to its credit, looked at what was happening around it and decided to say so. Whether that was the right call, whether the criteria was fair, whether the precedent holds, whether the recognition was earned in the right way, those debates will continue. But the thing itself? What those 40,000 people did? That part is not complicated at all. What do you think? Did Austria make the right call? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe now. The clay season is just beginning and this story is moving faster than anyone expected.